Financial industry and investing traps. Let's get things straight here and lay it all out on the table. Nothing is ever straightforward. When it comes to money, the rules of the game may be straightforward, but throw in humans, human nature, modern capitalism, and politics, and it's pretty much a war zone out there for your finances. Everyone wants a piece of your money. And in this module, I'm going to lay out things about the financial services industry that you probably have wrong or have no clue about, that are legally designed for maximum profit on your wealth. Basically designed to give them more than you when it comes to your money. And if you fall into the trap, it's literally at the cost of your financial freedom and time. Trap 1. The sales trap. What are you afraid of when it comes to money? Losing your money? Making the wrong decision? Not having enough? That's where they get you, based on your fears and your ignorance. The very fact that there hasn't been financial education or a formal how-to in money management, well, until we built one, officially proves that no one is in your corner when it comes to your financial freedom. It's just business. The industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry worldwide designed to profit on your money. It's made up of banks, insurance companies, and other financial service providers. How do they make money? By managing your investments and by selling you products. The two biggest driving forces of those sales are digital services like your banking apps and the salespeople in financial services who are called financial advisors. Now, of course, there are a lot of amazing financial professionals out there who actually do care about you and they craft more than they do the sales. And I feel like I have to say that because I'm also a financial planner. But unfortunately, care is not going to get you to your finish line. The system isn't designed to accommodate their empathy. Look, if it's not apparent, financial advisors, property brokers, FX traders, and everyone in the money and banking space are just normal people who didn't learn about money in school or after school for that matter, just like you and I. Do you know what financial advisors, the people you turn to for advice around your financial plan up to this day, are taught in training? They taught how to use calculators, similar to the one you have, to calculate shortfalls and taxes. They taught about legislation to stay within compliance. Other than that, they're taught about products and how to sell financial products through an advice process. So what happens is an insurance company or contractor of an insurance company hires a person to be a financial planner. They go through product training, sales training, and go out into the market to sell products and create fancy Instagram pages with wealth quotes. Nothing wrong with this. It's great for marketing awareness. They are then taught to maintain professionalism through a standard advice process, the 6-step financial planning process. Let me take you through it. Step 1, establish and define the relationship with the client. The official wording reads as follows. It's where the professional provides their credentials and certification of skills, knowledge and experience in providing their services in writing and the scope of the engagement before any financial planning is provided. Now there's more official words, but here's what happens in the real world. This is the part after you get a phone call from an advisor or their sales call person to book a financial health check review on your life or save you money or whatever the pitch is. Which sounds great because it's someone who's there to demystify finances, right? Step 2, collect the client's information. The official words, personal and financial objectives, needs and priorities that are relevant to the scope of the engagement before making and or implementing any recommendations. In real life, this is the part where you give your financial details like salary and budget, ID numbers and so on, so they can create the plan that will get you to your financial freedom. Let's move on to step 3. Analyze and assess the client's financial status. The official words? Well, the professional analyzes the client's information subject to the scope of the engagement to gain an understanding of the client's financial situation. The financial planning professional assesses the strengths and weaknesses of the client's current financial situation and compares them to the client's objectives, needs, and priorities. In the real world, this is the part where they put your details into a CRM, or the fancier ones have a team plugging in your data into calculators while you have a beautiful slice of cake and wait for them to work out overestimated shortfalls designed to make you aware of what happens if you die, what happens if you don't invest. The math is sometimes questionable, but the principle is correct. This fear is what you buy into. Step 4. Develop the financial planning recommendations and present them to the client. Official words. The professional considers one or more strategies relevant to the client's current situation that could reasonably meet the client's objectives, needs, and priorities. Then develops the financial planning recommendations based on the selected strategies to reasonably meet the client's confirmed objectives, needs, and priorities. And presents the financial planning recommendations and the supporting rationale in the way that allows the client to make an informed decision. In the real world, this is where it gets interesting, because after all of that, the recommendations come out the other side with an insurance policy for the what-ifs in life and an investment product for your retirement or child's education. Now, I suppose that's fine, right? A product to suit the shortfall is fair. Let's continue for now. Step 5, implement the financial planning recommendations. The official terms: the professional and the client agree on implementation responsibilities that are consistent with the scope of the engagement, the client's acceptance of the financial planning recommendations, and the financial planning professional's ability to implement the financial planning recommendations. Based on the scope of the engagement, the financial planning professional identifies and presents appropriate products and services that are consistent with the financial planning recommendations. This is accepted by the client. What actually happens? This is where they meet with you and spend an hour or so to explain 100 pages of fine print for you to sign digitally, of course, because that's advanced practice, which is part of the experience, even if you have no idea what it's really about, because half of those pages are about discounts, health checks, free stuff, and swiping your card for gym benefits. Step 6, review the client's situation. Officially, the professional and client mutually define and agree on terms for reviewing and evaluating the client's situation, including goals, risk profile, lifestyle, and other relevant changes. If conducting a review, the financial planning professional and the client review the client's situation to assess progress towards achievement of the objectives of the financial planning recommendations, to determine if the recommendations are still appropriate and confirm any revisions mutually considered necessary. And just like that, you have a financial plan and you go on your merry way in life, because they have to review you every year. But let's logically think about that for a second. If reviewing your entire financial position once a year was the key to a successful plan for your freedom, it would have to be an incredible review of your life, your assets, your cash flow, your goals, and everything else. It would have to be an entire day at least, right? Now, over 10 years, you would have had 10 full days of conversations that were extremely saturated with information. How much of this information from each of those conversations would have made sense and actually stayed in your mind? Well, that depends. How it was presented, your frame of mind on that particular day, how long the meeting was, how many reviews the advisor had scheduled on that day, because let's be serious, no advisor spends the whole day with you on your plans. It would also depend on how focused both parties were, how detailed the review was. And it's safe to say that once a year is a sugarcoating for neglect. This is the plan for your financial freedom. And unfortunately, the reality is for most people that they don't have good habits with money, let alone need advanced analytics of this life. It's clear as daylight that they just want to make it through and have enough funds accumulated at some point to draw an income to live on. And like anything in life, if you ask the right questions and follow the money, you'll find some interesting answers. So where do most advisors make money? On the sale. Did you know that when you buy an insurance product, the advisor makes money on the sale of the product based on its premium? So the incentive on their side is to sell more products or sell higher premiums while treating you fairly, of course. So 3 questions you need to ask to understand a lot about the industry relative to your life. Who's making the most money? What's the value of the advice worth to you? What's the value of the advice worth to the advisor? So basically, where's your money going for what service? Well, your money is invested with no guarantee on a return, yet there's a proportionate guaranteed fee on that investment. If you contribute more, the fund increases, which means the fee increases, but still no guarantee on return. Another question, what do you get for what you pay? Is it worth it, and do you need it? What does your advisor get for what they sell you? Well, if an advisor sells you an insurance product at 1,000 Rand premium per month, the standard commission legally is about 10,000 Rand. If your spouse then jumps on the bandwagon because she happens to be there and they upsell her product and adds another 600 Rand to that premium, that is 6,000 Rand extra in commission that you are paying for. Let me put it to you in one picture. Here's the market. This is where you need to invest. Here you are with your capital to invest. And between these two are the insurance company, the asset manager, and the intermediary or financial advisor. Your capital goes through all of these before reaching the market, and that's what you're paying for. The product, the service, the asset manager, and the convenience. Is it worth it? Trap 2, the promise of returns. The best investors in the world can't tell you exactly what return they will get you. So, how is it that every other person gets you when they tell you that they've got the secret to high returns? In fact, the world's best investors all say their version of successful investing, which is diversify your investment so you don't have all your eggs in one basket, split your risk so you don't lose it all on a bad day, that's out of anyone's control anyway. Have a proper asset allocation, that's the key to making money in the long run. Control your costs so you don't pay most of your money in fees on your path to investing. Do this consistently over time. There's nothing about returns. Returns are a byproduct of a good strategy because returns will come as assets increase in value. Returns are just a number that you hold a value to in hindsight. There are thousands of unit trusts or mutual funds in the market. In your life, you'll probably come across a handful of these by a sales guy that's suggesting you invest in those funds because they are the professional, right? And yet in the same sentence and on every paper, every investment company disclaims that past performance is not indicative of future performance. What does this mean? It means that none of those fund managers can guarantee any return. Literally, it means that if the market drops, it's not their fault and you are warned beforehand, so you cannot say anyone promised you any return at all. Returns are just a guideline that the fund hopes to get. So think about it this way. Logically, if no professional investment manager can tell you what returns they will get, why do you buy into a false promise? Because of media, marketing, and popular opinion. That's why it all shapes our behavior. We are led to believe that returns are what we're meant to chase, rather than to have a good investment strategy to stick out the bad times and enjoy the good times. Every one of those thousands of funds available to invest all have the aim to provide a return, but with no promise of it. Now, without sounding too harsh, fund managers do have winning streaks. They outperform the market and deliver good returns sometimes. If you see those returns as an investor, that's awesome. However, the fact is it's been proven that they can't do it consistently over long periods of time, which means the winning streaks are equally met with losing streaks, and neither you nor the fund managers themselves are in control of it. On top of that, it's not always the same fund managers who are on these winning streaks, and so every year, every finance publication has an annual clickbait article on the best performing funds or shares of the previous year. And it just so happens to be paid for by the asset manager who had the highest marketing budget to promote their luck in hopes that you give them your next investment contribution. And all of these pieces of useless information, highest returns, is what you consume and promote. It finds its way into your conversations and you allow it to govern your thoughts and actions, further leaving you open to the next sales pitch. Because returns are easy to sell. So the next time you see an article about the top fund or highest returns, understand that it's just marketing. So take control of your thoughts before your emotions kick in. This is what I mean by emotions. If you look at this graph, how we chase returns versus how the market actually works, causing losses for investors time and time again. Understand this. When a friend boasts about his 100% returns in a day on his stock trading app, we feel we're missing out, even though that friend doubled his 200 Rand investment today and didn't tell you about the 10,000 Rand he lost yesterday. It's human nature. It's not their fault. I had a friend who lost majority of his life savings when Steinhoff crashed. This was just under 3 million Rand, which he had previously spoke of with some pride, right? He spoke of his investors' monthly breakfast with his friend, the CA. All of that money in one share because it was growing in value, right? Until it crashed. So no diversification, no protection of risk, and yet the warning of those flaws was trumped by what? The wonder of returns on paper. Stop chasing returns because they are out of anyone's control. Investing in shares is the best place over the long term to see returns, but only if you have the correct strategy. And the correct strategy is all about having one thing correct: the right asset allocation to match the time frame of your goal. I covered this in detail in the investment course on the Free Money School in the lesson How to Invest. If you have the right asset allocation for the right time frame for each of your goals, you will give yourself the best chance of achieving your goal. So pay attention to your emotions and learn to identify the marketing that surrounds you. Don't fall into the herd mentality of the returns trap. Having the correct strategy will pay you in the form of returns. Don't listen to anyone who promises you returns in the market. You can invest in the market without them and save money doing it. Trap 3. Fees are worth it. A fee is what you pay to an asset management company, insurance company, and financial professional for investing. Remember when I said that it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry? It's because of fees. The average cost of investing for an ordinary investor globally is just over 3% in fees per annum. Which means if you invest 100,000 Rand, you will pay over 3,000 Rand in fees. When it grows or you contribute more, that money also grows and it will continue to grow for as long as you are invested. Now, if that doesn't sound like a big number, consider the last section on return, where no investment fund manager can really outperform the market over time. And imagine this scenario. You are invested in a unit trust account with Company A into a balanced fund basket of shares for 2.16% per annum. The fund has an active manager picking shares and making trades where necessary in the year in hopes of a higher return. You have 100,000 Rand invested and contribute 2,500 Rand a month. Now let's look at investment company B that has the same account on offer with a similar balanced fund basket of shares for 0.65% per annum in fees. It's a passive fund, which means it tracks a balanced fund index automatically. Now you've learned how money grows, so fact check this with me for yourself. Open up your calculator. You're going to learn how to use it to calculate the effect of your fees. Now I did a bit of research and downloaded 2 real-life funds information for this example. One is a passive fund and the other is an actively managed balanced fund. Here they are. The managed funds return over time over the last 5 years was 4.9% per annum. The passive index fund over the last 5 years return was 6.8% per annum. Now, just on a side note, these returns were never guaranteed and are only available in hindsight up to this day. So when you look at the table of returns on both those pieces of paper, it means that from the 30th of November 2020, backwards 5 years worked out as an average over time, those are the returns. This means that the market could have literally jumped 20% last week and returned nothing over the last 4 years, 11 months and 3 weeks from the 30th of November. And so when you average it out, it's represented like a consistent return, but it's just an average. Another way of understanding this is the market could drop 20% in December and the December fund fact sheet will have different numbers in each column. And not a lot of people know how to read a fund fact sheet. This is another trap, by the way, and it's fairly easy to explain as a side note. So just be aware of any salesman who shows you a fund fact sheet with impressive numbers to sell you a return. Anyway, back to fees. Open up your calculator and input 100,000 Rand as your current balance. Input 2,500 Rand as your recurring contribution. The return for your current active managed fund, which was 4.9%, put that into return. the fees, which are 2.16, put that in the column of fees, and your investment will be worth 275,000 Rand if you were to consider investing over the next 5 years. Note that number down, because if you do the same inputs to compare the new investment, the cheaper one over the 5 years with its higher return and lower fees, your investment will be worth 310,000 Rand over that same 5 years. That's a 12% difference in growth from a 1.51% difference in fee. Now, if this continues for 20 years, your investment fund will be 968,000 Rand versus 1.488 million Rand in the cheaper fund. That's a 35% difference in growth from that same 1.51% difference in fees. 35% difference. The longer you have it, the bigger that difference will be. Now, to be fair, the active managed fund that we are comparing against did have a lower return than the index fund. And seeing as return is something no one can actually project, let's assume the return is equal and run the same calculation again. Put in the 100,000 as your current balance, 2,500 as your recurring contribution. Your return will be constant at 6% for each of them, and the fees will be the only difference. Now, if you look at it over 40 years, your investment fund will be 3.2 million Rand versus 5.8 million Rand. And that's a 44.1% difference in growth from the same 1.5% difference in fee. This is the reality for most investors, and many people are oblivious to it and would rather sacrifice half of their growth and financial freedom potential than do it directly with no middleman. And here's the kicker. The example we just went through is an example of a fund that's 2.16% in fees and not even the 3% or more that is the average fees in the market. So the question is to you, are you willing to pay more than half of your very probable wealth to a fund manager that will almost surely not perform? In fact, I'm not asking you because I've seen this happen time and time again. Chances are you're paying it anyway, and it's admin to change those fees in your life and investments. Over the years, I've made many people aware of the cost of their investment and insurance products, and more often than not, they do nothing about it because of 3 reasons. It's a mission due to the admin that it takes to change. It's incredibly hard to understand and navigate the maze of fees. Asset management companies don't show them properly or hide them on the paperwork. So it is a bit of effort. And 3, the salesman always has something to say that magically makes you forget. Maybe more promises of return. So how do you get on top of this? What's the solution? Well, firstly, you have the calculator. So learn about how much you're paying. Before you sign any piece of paper, look for the fees section and understand this. Every investment has fees for these criteria: TER, transaction costs, advisor costs, upfront advisor costs, yes, it's a separate fee, a platform cost, a fee for administration, and there could also be other fees such as withdrawal costs, marketing costs, contribution costs, and commission recovery costs attached to your investment. Note all of them down when working this out. Add them all up, plug them into your calculator, and compare the difference to something cheaper. And quite honestly, walk away if you have these, because in this day and age, there are so many gimmicks designed into investment vehicles and retirement products which say that after a certain amount of money, your fees are reduced to 0. The sales guys love these products. Guys, it's a $1 trillion industry designed for profit, not your best life. And if it doesn't make any sense to you, revert to common logic. There's no such thing as a free investment, and there's definitely someone that's selling a lie. Now that you know how to reduce your fees, do something about it. And if it saves you 2% to 3% per year in unnecessary fees, I just saved you millions in cash and brought you back years in your journey to living financially free. So if you understand this, then you can make the change and rather spend the money saved investing in quality advice as and when you need it, rather than attracting high fees as a percentage to your investment plan. Paying a person of value for their time to help you make a change today. If you're not sure how you're going to go about changing things for yourself, find someone to do that for you. If you have investments, request a review on the My Money Talk site. But we'll go more into detail on how you can find the right person to help you in Module 6. But for now, understand that this industry has been growing year on year because of the fees you are paying. I'll see you in the next lesson.